I'm telling you guys, this week it seems like it's going to be rivalry week in the NFL. There's a lot of divisional games, and in divisional games, I like dogs. And this week, out of my five best bets, I am taking four division games, and I am taking all underdogs to at least cover in all. So I have basically one favorite in this week's best bet. So without further ado, let's kick it off. These are my week 14 money line picks and best bets. Again, last week went 13 and 3 in the money line, 3 for 5 in best bets. We take that a successful week, not a great week, especially for best bets. We want to get to that 4 out of 5 range. So here we go. It's one of my upsets of the week. I like Green Bay. I'm taking them plus the points. I'm taking them 3.5. I'm taking them to upset the Detroit Lions. They did this to the Lions last year on Thanksgiving Day. After Green Bay got slaughtered by Detroit in Green Bay week 4 on a Thursday night, 8 weeks later in week 12, Thanksgiving Day, is when Jordan Love began his on streak to almost carrying the Green Bay Packers to the NFC Championship game. The Packers this year, they have lost two games in their division to Minnesota, which was Jordan Love's first game back coming off the injury, and week 9 to Detroit, which was also, again, Jordan Love left the game previously against Jacksonville with an injury. Their only other loss was week 1 to the Philadelphia Eagles in Brazil. For the Lions, they have lost one game this year. It was at home. It was against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. It was in week 2. But during the past few weeks, to me, you're starting to see some kinks in the Lions' armor. They're starting to get behind. They're starting to not put together complete halves. They're starting to get some droughts here. And again, I think it's a divisional game. I think it's a short week. Believe it or not, even though Green Bay has only lost 3 games, their last loss was against the Lions. I think they are a hot football team right now. And this game does mean a lot to both teams. The Lions, even though they only have one loss, they don't even have not only the number one seed locked up because my Philadelphia Eagles are right on their tail, but they don't even have their own division locked up with Minnesota and Green Bay behind them. If Green Bay wins this thing, obviously they're in the mix for the NFC North title. If the Lions win, Green Bay will almost certainly be the sixth seed in the NFC playoff picture. So, again, good luck to any NFC West or NFC South division winner who would then take on Green Bay in their home environment. I think Jordan Love is a good game. I think he shows out on a Thursday night. Again, I love Dean Campbell. I love MCDC. I think the Lions do beat people up, which I think Green Bay could fall the very next week. We've seen that this season historically. But I like the Packers here to split with the Lions, stay in the NFC North hunt, tighten it up. I think Green Bay with the hook here, plus 3.5. Okay, Panthers at Eagles. Now, my Eagles are favored by 12.5 points. I'll be honest, I hope they cover. I don't know if they will cover that number. Feels like a lot the way the Carolina Panthers have been playing the last month. And as I said on Tuesday, maybe CJ Stroud is the better quarterback than Bryce Young, but this is the reason why Bryce Young was taken number one overall. I never thought Bryce Young, who was so good in college, even at his short frame, would come into the league and look like he can't play quarterback. And Dave Canales, the former Tampa Bay offensive coordinator, and that benching was seemingly the best thing that happened to Bryce Young. They've taken Tampa Bay to the limit. They've taken Kansas City to the limit here. They have 3 wins this year. All last year they had 2 wins. So this Carolina team is playing very good football. Xavier Leggett, Adam Thielen, they're giving Bryce Young some legitimate weapons. It seems like the offense has also improved after getting rid of Deontay Johnson, which consequently has not done anything in Baltimore either. So, listen, the Eagles are obviously the best rushing team in football. They're one of the best offenses in all the league. But the story about this Eagles team, as we talked about, It's not Saquon Barkley, who could theoretically be in the MVP conversation. It's not Jalen Hurts, who has done a better job taking care of the football. It's not A.J. Brown or Devontae Smith or even Dallas Goedert, who it sounds like not going to play this week, dealing with a knee injury. It's about Cooper DeJean, Jalen Carter, Quinyon Mitchell, Zach Bond, Kobe Dean, and that Eagles defense, led by defensive coordinator Vic Fangio, who has went from one of the worst units, maybe the worst unit in the NFL last year, to the best unit in the NFL this year, especially post bye when Cooper DeJean was instituted in that slot position for Avante Maddox. I think this defensive line controls the game. They get after Bryce Young. My Eagles will win at home. And a little nugget here about the Eagles' schedule. This year, their own games included, again, week one against the Green Bay Packers, which was in Brazil, week two against the Atlanta Falcons. They did not play another own game till week six against the Browns. They didn't play another home game then till week 9 against Jacksonville, and not another home game until week 11 against the Commanders. They played five home games this year, only four of them on their turf. And starting with this game against Carolina, their only other road game this season is in 2 weeks, week 16 at Washington, which is a bus ride. Obviously, week 13 at Baltimore was a bus ride. So, therefore, for Philadelphia, after week 12, if they get this number one seed here over the Detroit Lions, they may not have to travel until Super Bowl 59. If my Philadelphia Eagles are so lucky to get there, that would be an incredible over 2 month stretch that my Philadelphia Eagles would not have to get on an airplane. Now, next game. I know Pittsburgh hung 44 points on Cincinnati. I know they'll be looking revenge on Cleveland for that snow game that occurred a couple weeks ago. I do think it's hard for a team to beat another team twice in 2 weeks. I like the Steelers to win here against the Browns, but Jameis Winston gave you a full Jameis Winston experience on Monday Night Football. 497 yards, couple of touchdowns. Jerry Jeudy having a career night, and then two pick sixes to lose the game for the Browns. I don't think Pittsburgh has the ability to blow anybody out. This is a rivalry game. And so I like the Browns here. I don't think the Steelers win by a touchdown. I think it's by 6 points or less. And I think I'm going to take the Browns here with Jameis Winston, who I think will make incredible throws. Again, I like the Steelers to win in the money line here, but I like the Browns divisional matchup plus the points. Saints at Giants. I'm not going to waste any time. Giants are a disaster. Saints are a disaster. Yeah, Darren Rizzi probably going to go to 3-1 as interim head coach, and they almost beat the Rams last week. Quietly, the Saints are starting to try to make some noise in the NFC South, though I don't think it'll matter. I'm not touching this game. These are two garbage teams, but I'll take the Saints on the road because Derek Carr is better than whoever the hell the Giants are throwing out there at quarterback. Okay, this is risky. I'm going back to the well one more time. I like Atlanta. I like them to not only cover the 5.5, but I'm taking them on the road to upset the Minnesota Vikings. This is Kirk Cousins' return back to Minnesota. And this game to me will tell us if Michael Penix is going to be the quarterback of the future for the Atlanta Falcons, maybe even as quick as this year. Because Atlanta and Tampa, and I'll like Tampa Bay in here. Tampa was one of those teams who I considered betting -6.5 against the Raiders. There were two things that kind of kept me away from that. Number one is Antonio Pierce's Raiders play hard. Antonio Pierce is having those guys fight for jobs next year and fight for his own job, and they hung in there last week with the Kansas City Chiefs, who again is their divisional rival. The other thing is going to be the status of Baker Mayfield, who we don't know about. He was questionable with a knee injury. He had to leave the game against Carolina for a little bit coming in. Listen, this could very well be a smash spot for Tampa. I think they'll beat Vegas, but I'll stay away from the bet here because of Baker's injury. So that puts so much pressure on Atlanta because Atlanta started the year 6-3. and they beat Tampa Bay at that twice. You remember me about a month ago, week 8, week 9 or so, coming on here and saying, if Tampa's going to make a run for it, it's probably going to have to be at the 7th seed and the Commanders in that wild card spot because the Falcons are going to have the NFC South wrapped up. No, they're not. They have all of a sudden lost at New Orleans, at Denver, and then obviously home to the Chargers. They are free falling. Tampa Bay, after their wins against the Giants and the Panthers, and again, those are two bad teams, and the Raiders are bad teams, so say what you want. But all of a sudden, Atlanta went from 6-3, Tampa 4-6, to now, listen to this. You've got the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the Atlanta Falcons tied at 6-6. And if the Bucks win and the Vikings win, Tampa Bay takes over first place in the NFC South because they would be a game ahead of Atlanta. The Vikings, yes, they would get a big boost by the Packers defeating the Lions. They would be in line to control their own destiny for the NFC North title. But you don't know what you're going to get from them week to week. To me, Kirk Cousins went against that Brian Flores defense in practice last year. I think Atlanta's a better team than what their free falling shows. The Vikings have been pretty inconsistent this season. One half they have a good half, second half they have a bad half, or vice versa. I think Atlanta, who's used to playing in a dome, used to playing in loud environments, I think they come in there. And again, I like Atlanta plus the points. I don't think Minnesota, early in the year, they were blowing people out. They were surprising people. See San Francisco, see Houston. I don't think they have that ability anymore. So I like the Falcons. Even though this is the Vikings' second straight home game, I think they cover the 5.5. Jags at Titans. Um, Weirdly, I trust Mac Jones and the way that he was playing last week, maybe in garbage time, nonetheless, more than I do Will Levis. I don't think I will ever pick Will Levis to win a football game. Sorry, Sam from Survivor 47, but Will Levis is not a franchise quarterback. I like Doug Peterson and the Jacksonville Jaguars here. Again, I do think that Doug Peterson, Mac Jones, Evan Ingram, ETN, Bigsby. I just think Jacksonville's lost so many close games this year. They have more talent than Tennessee. I'll take them on the road, but this is like Saints and Giants. Who cares? Who knows? I'm not touching the game. Jets at Dolphins. So this was the divisional game that I stayed away from. Listen, I think Miami could absolutely put a spot on them. I think they could blow them out. Revenge spot here for losing to Green Bay. The Jets are an absolute disaster. Aaron Rodgers is coming out with a new Netflix series, and who knows what's going on with the Jets and if they want Aaron back, if Aaron wants to come back, if he's coming back. That team is a circus. But again, it's a divisional game. And so divisional games are weird. You never know. Jets are going down to that hot sun, which historically teams late in the season have struggled in. Miami has to come back there in week 18. So this is the first time these two teams are playing each other all season long, which is another interesting note here. Same thing with Jaguars Titans. Uh, but I just think Miami's going to bounce back here. I think Miami wins. They probably cover. Who knows with the Jets how they play? To me, it's a stay away game. Um, Next game, we got Bears at the Niners. Now, I'm not going to bet this game. Early on in the week, I was considering taking Chicago plus 3.5 with the hook. Interim head coach Thomas Brown taking over for Matt Eberflus. I do believe that, the Bears are going to play well here down the stretch. I don't think Thomas Brown is in consideration to be the new head coach. Caleb Williams will probably play well. I don't know the injury status. Sounds like Bose is not going to play for San Francisco, along with their numerous other injuries on their defensive line. But the Niners got embarrassed the last couple of weeks by the Packers and then by Buffalo. I do think that they bounce back here, even with the losses of Jordan Mason and Christian McCaffrey in the backfield. And obviously, they already don't have Ayuk. Again, I think the last 2 weeks, the 425 big window game against Green Bay, then national television against the Buffalo Bills, they were embarrassed. And, the Bears defense was good under Eberflus. I don't know right now who the Bears defensive play caller will be. They could take a hit defensively, and I think San Francisco's angry. And for what it's worth, they probably have to win out. Again, I think their season's over, but if they win out, there might be a swimmer of hope that they could win the NFC West. Bears have found a way to lose close games this year. I think they do the same again here. This may be close to the end, but I like San Francisco to win. Okay. Sorry again to my Seahawks fans that I know, including my cousin Derek. Listen, last week I bet you I finally trusted Geno Smith and Mike McDonald. They came through against the Jets. But as I mentioned with the Browns and Steelers, I think it's very hard to beat a team twice in 3 weeks. I like Arizona here. This is the one favorite bet I like. It's at 2.5. We know what that game looked like 2 weeks ago, 17-6. We know what Arizona did against Minnesota last week. They had them beat to the final second. Arizona's a very streaky team. Again, I think these two teams are relatively even. It felt like, if Arizona won in Seattle, Seattle would come back here and win, and vice versa. So I like Arizona. I think they're going to win this game by at least 3 points. I like them to cover the 2.5. Bills at the Rams. Now, the Rams are a very interesting team, right? They're a very sneaky team. We don't know what we're going to get from them week to week. Matthew Stafford, Puka Nacua, Cooper Kupp, they can always put up points. They were shut out in the first half last week against the Saints. What can I say about Buffalo and Josh Allen and James Cook, and obviously the addition of Amari Cooper and Shakir and what they've done, even with Dalton Kincaid down with an injury? I just think Buffalo, Sean McDermott and them, they had their eyes on the number one prize. They had their eyes on the number one seed. They know the Chiefs have an opportunity to lose this game to the Chargers. Listen, the Rams are fighting for their season. They know that. They're going to battle to the end. This is, still somewhat of a four-team race, though. Again, I think it's a three-team race in the NFC West between Seattle, LA, and Arizona. I like Buffalo here. They certainly could cover the 4.5. But again, I just think there are better games on the board. Rams could give them a game here, and it could come down to the wire. You never know how teams traveling from the east to the west coast will do. This game does have the feel of a shootout to me. Now, the Chiefs beat the Chargers in week 4, but it was a 17-10 game, and Justin Herbert was on one leg. The way the Chargers have been playing, and they got a big bounce back win where they went down to Atlanta after losing to Jim Harbaugh's brother John at home, the Baltimore Ravens, the Monday night after Thanksgiving. The Chargers have had this game circled on their calendar all week. And we know the Chiefs, I've been telling you, I don't care who they play. They've had tough divisional games. They should have lost to Denver. They arguably should have lost to Vegas. Again, they could have lost to the Chargers in week 4. They just don't blow people out. Travis Kelce has not looked the same. Maybe they're saving him for the postseason. Patrick Mahomes is not making those explosive plays with Xavier Worthy that he was earlier in the season. And even without J.K. Dobbins, you got Gus Edwards, you got Haskins back there. Lad McConkey has been a wonderful addition for the Chargers, replacing Keenan Allen, and Mike Williams is the main go-to target there for Justin Herbert. I just think the Chargers, they're built for this. They control the clock, they run the football, and they will make Buffalo Bills fans very happy. I'm taking the Chargers with the hook in best bets plus 3.5, and I actually like them to go in Kansas City and upset Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs. And if I'm right, the Bills defeat the Rams. That'll position Buffalo, who has already beaten Kansas City head to head, as right now the number one seed in the AFC. And finally, Cincinnati at Dallas. Dallas is technically still fighting for their season. If they win out, they could somehow sneak into that NFC wildcard spot. You just never know what you're going to get from Mike McSleepy. Though, thing is, the Bengals offense, we already know. I told you on Tuesday, they're going to become the first team in NFL history to have what, in my opinion, will be the leading touchdown thrower in Joe Burrow, the leading touchdown catcher in Jamar Chase, the leading sack getter in the NFL in Trey Anderson, and missed the playoffs. They've lost 6 games this year, giving up 30 or more, 4 games giving up 34 or more, and 2 games giving up 38 or more. I don't think Dallas is capable of putting up that many points. I think you have to get in a shootout to beat Cincinnati because Burrow, Chase, Higgins, Gesicki, as we talked about, Tanner Hudson, Chase Brown out of the backfield, who has, in my opinion, taken over nicely for Joe Mixon. Um, I think that Bengals defense is on fire. I think the way Zimmer plays on a man-to-man coverage, I think this is a huge game for the Bengals offense. I think they'll win. They'll probably cover. You can't trust any of these teams, especially on the back end. But Joe Burrow against Cooper Rush, to me, Bengals in Dallas all day long. So to recap here, in the money line for week 14 of the 2024 NFL season, I have Green Bay going to Detroit and winning, Philadelphia at home over Carolina, Pittsburgh at home over Cleveland, New Orleans on the road against the Giants, Atlanta on the road against Minnesota, Tampa at home against Vegas, Jacksonville on the road at Tennessee, Miami at home against the Jets, San Francisco at home against Chicago, Arizona at home against Seattle, Buffalo on the road against the Rams, Chargers on the road against Kansas City, and then Cincinnati on the road Monday night at Dallas. My five best bets for week 14 of the 2024 NFL season are: not only do I like the Packers in the money line in Detroit, I'm taking them plus 3.5. As I already mentioned, I do like Pittsburgh in the money line against Cleveland, but I like the Browns plus 6.5 here with Jameis Winston. I like Atlanta to not only go to Minnesota and win, but I think in their last stand here, Kirk Cousins coming back to Minnesota. I like Atlanta plus 5.5, just too many points. I like Arizona, my one cover of the week. I think they get revenge on Seattle from a couple weeks ago. And I think the Chargers, speaking of revenge, from week 4 here, plus 3.5 with the hook. I think they go in. I think they take down Kansas City outright here and give Buffalo a position to be in first place in the AFC. Like that clip from the Brand's World podcast? If so, make sure you go down there and hit that subscribe button. While you're down there hitting the subscribe button, make sure to also hit the notification bell so you never miss another upload. And make sure you check out all the other clips from the Brand's World podcast right here on YouTube.